what can we do to disrupt bullying as a leader? And there's a whole page on the Disrupting Academic Bullying site to take a look at that goes into these actions a little bit deeper. I'm also available to kind of, be a sounding board, talk about ways that things can be done. But directly, one, you can listen and observe what's going on. So if somebody comes to you and says that they're experiencing this, listen to them. After you listen to them, try to pay attention, be more aware to see if, is this something that is prevalent in my environment? Is this something that maybe there's just a one-time situation or something that can be addressed in a different mode? But do listen and observe. And then after you've observed, make sure that you have consistent responses to complaints. Because that's another thing that I hear a lot in my role is, well, I can't say anything because, people at a higher level of authority won't do anything anyways because, one, they're friends with these people, or, that's often a way that, we dismiss ourselves when we're feeling in conflict or feel like we need to have a difficult conversation, is that other people will dismiss what we have to say. But if you can at least listen and observe and then give a consistent response that you're at least hearing and that you're going to look into it, you're going to have a conversation with somebody, that can be a way to kind of change that dynamic in the environment. Annual review processes. So, if you're a leader, supervisor, and you can make this part of what people are expected annually, I think that would also have a direct change in the way that people treat each other. Indirect ways that you can disrupt bullying as a leader: set expectations for conduct. So we have the principles of community here at Virginia Tech, but reiterate them and what they mean in your department, in your program, to ensure that people are not treating people in a hostile or offensive manner. Have awareness when recruiting. So, Janice, you know a lot about the holistic admissions process. Same thing when you're recruiting people to be part of your team. Think about more than just the resume that's there, but how are they going to fit into the relational dynamics of our group? And then also train for awareness. So conversations like this, presentation like this, that just allows people to start to have a operational definition of some of these behaviors and some of these concepts, might allow people to feel more comfortable disrupting bullying in your group environment. So we have resources that are available. We have a website that I've talked about. We have the Academic Bullying Referral Form, Cook Counseling for Students, Equity and Access out of Human Resources, the Dean of Students Office, and then the Ombudsperson, of course. If you go to our website, and Ann just got these up on our website yesterday, or very recently, we have a variety of cases that can be used for reflection. There's nice multiple perspective situations that are provided there. So I don't know, but you can go there and you can find the information, the cases there. But let's talk about next steps right now. So one of the next steps that I'm hoping can happen is to have presentations across departments. I've already gone to a couple departments and talked about this type of issue. I'm going to be in Fish and Wildlife next week. I'm going to have a good conversation there. But really what we want to do is roll this out so that not only students, but also faculty members and staff understand that what we're working on here in terms of this effort. And there is a presentation that is on that website, so you can click that presentation. So if you want to feel comfortable, leading the conversation, there's a lot of inquiry that's integrated into the slides, so it really is set up to have a conversation through a presentation. Or if you would like assistance, I'm happy to go out and do this type of presentation through education and outreach. It's something that I enjoy doing. We're also working on continued messaging. We want to think about ways that we can make people more aware of this effort through campaigns or flyers. There's flyers that I have here, and I can send this out to anybody that would like a flyer that we can hang in the hallways or put in offices. We also have, and Dean DePauw has mentioned this in the past, a plan to ask programs or departments to develop a framework for an action plan, or develop an action plan that looks at how can you disrupt academic bullying in your specific environment. And I put together a little framework here for an action plan, which kind of looks at, how do we strive to be defined as a community? What are proactive measures we will employ to maintain this type of community? What are channels for voicing concerns within our community? Expectations for addressing concerns that are shared? Protocol for ensuring transparency while maintaining proper confidentiality? And then evaluative criteria for measuring the impact of our efforts. And so this would be a very robust action plan. And I've got some ideas for rolling people through conversations, or have some guides that you could bring conversations to develop something like this in your department. But I kind of want to hear in the last 5 or 10 minutes that we have here, what are some initial incremental steps that you feel could bring forward this effort in your specific departments or programs?
This looks a lot like the steps that I'm engaging in for a community development plan, just for the grad program in general. Because now we're revising our graduate handbook, and each department meeting, I'm having faculty, or my group, my team, come together and make decisions on departmental policy. And grad students are invited into those conversations.
Great.
So we have a shared conversation around, and work that I'm doing is trying to make sure then that those conversations are transparent, and that there is not bullying that occurs afterward because of voices that are. So I'm kind of navigating that work, but I see the end point being really good. So I think this is excellent, especially if there's a tool to then kind of guide what that plan should be. Good evaluation. Are you being effective? Is it working? Yeah, and so in one measure that I'm going to start using, of course, in our orientation week to have a workshop. We'll see how many faculty attend with the grad students. But the annual review process for our grad students will have the full leadership over it rather than faculty having to submit it. So I'm switching the way that the entire process works. And then I want some just anonymous feedback at the end of each year from those grad students. So it's going to be a Qualtrics survey.
Oh, good.
Where that information will not be shared to the department. It's to guide my work, because there's a lot of work that someone in a leadership position, even if I'm not in a tenure track position, it's still the work that I do then guides how the department functions in our grad program. So there's a lot of things I can do that no one will even know why, right? They don't have to know why, or what was the feedback that then caused me to take on this action item as my goal for that semester or that year. So it's just a way that grad students can have that voice and know that someone's going to take steps, but then you have to take steps, or they're like, why am I doing this anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got to know that there's some follow through there.
Yeah.
So that's great, and that would be a very robust plan. Some of the things that we talked about in terms of, at least initial steps, and this is Dean DePauw and I'd like to kind of get your thoughts about this, but one of at least coming out with maybe a statement or a paragraph that talks about how you will bring this effort of disrupting academic bullying forward in your environment, your program, or your department. So that's something that we see as maybe an initial step. How does that feel for people? Does that feel comfortable? Do you feel with this type of awareness of what you're looking at, that could be something that is developed?
I think it should be embedded in the departmental mission statement, instead of, because we do a lot of piece things, and so if it's if it's supposed to become a culture change, then it should be embedded within the already existing kind of philosophy and mission statement of that department, instead of its own just, well,
Statement or-
because they would like us to have, then here's our statement, right? Like, I would say that that piece would be embedded throughout.
Yeah, and that's a good point there. So looking at, does this get integrated in your mission statement? You know, one thing that we looked at in terms of incentivizing departments and programs was creating a place on our website where we could acknowledge these are programs or departments that have committed to disrupting academic bullying, and then we could put the statements there, and then also that could be noted on the program website as well, just so when aspiring students or faculty members, whoever's coming to this environment, would see that's the type of environment that I want to be part of.
Can you hear me? This is Audra Van Wart.
Hi, Audra. Yeah.
Great. Yes, I unmuted myself.
All right.
Yeah, I just had something to add. I think that's great. I think having some kind of statement, you know, saying that we recognize academic bullying happens and we want to do something about it. I think that's all fantastic. I think like even before that stage, there's that issue of culture and culture change. And I can say, I mean, there are things that I can think of that are clear examples of crossing the line in academic bullying that we hear about happening, or that that happens to students or between peers or faculty to faculty. But I think there's a lot that's in the gray area, and I think it would be really helpful. I don't know what format, but to have some kind of discussion or education about what kind of falls in that realm of academic bullying, because I think people just don't know. There's just between the generations, there are different cultures in terms of what is acceptable. I learned by the Socratic method, and this is not bullying, and you're going to feel a little intimidated when you're up there and don't know the answer. I just feel like faculty have a hard time drawing that line, and students do as well. I see there's a lot of peer-on-peer bullying from some of the same students that are very sensitive to whether they're being academically bullied. So I don't know what's the best solution, but if there was some way to have a broader discussion about how that's defined, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, and Audra, thank you for bringing that up. And I think that is important, because I think that is what causes a lot of what would be bullying behaviors to take place, is because people have a hard time distinguishing, is this the environment how it's supposed to be, or is this something that is hostile or offensive? And that's another reason why I think bringing this conversation to the various programs and departments and groups, so that can be understood, at least discussed at those levels, so that there's a shared understanding there, would be a very important kind of next step in this, so that then any type of statement, as you say, can be created with complete buy-in that this is the environment that we want to affirm. But I think ultimately, I guess my stance, and I like what Brene Brown here provides as civility in this quote, where there are different educational models and ways that we engage in providing feedback, but that does not necessarily make it right. And and in the work that we're doing, I think trying to go to a more generalized positive feedback cycle is something that we can hopefully get to in our environment. But definitely we need to start with the conversations at the local levels to see what is the environment that's experienced out there, what's important about that, how can that be perceived by those that are within that community or subjected to those behaviors. Is that okay? Is that not okay? and what kind of community or group dynamic do we want to affirm.
There's a lot of work to be done. When the program was first put out, it was on the website. Language.
Mm-hmm.
So the words that are used, and I know they were chosen intentionally, but how others might interpret those words, like bullying. I heard so much feedback from colleagues across campus that was, this is bullying, we're in grad school. So before we would even have read into any of the, okay, so what do we actually mean by this? Like harassing type behavior, when they see bullying, it's, oh, well, don't grow up. You know, if you're here, you know, this is academia. So it's that culture that's pervasive also, but then the language trying to soften that blow could have led to some dismissal due to what is already established.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like,
it does.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that is a reality too. I mean, as Audra was getting to, you're going to have people that feel like this is, and for right or wrong, I mean, yeah, there is the need to put people on the spot. There is a need to make people feel uncomfortable. But then where does that line stand where the positive, productive learning environment now becomes a hostile, intimidating, threatening environment?
And it's different for each individual that's experiencing it too.
Mm-hmm.
But those lines are different.
Yeah. And so, since that's the case,
Yeah.
and we have the ability to understand that people are going to perceive different things differently, how can we create an environment where people feel comfortable talking about that? And it's not necessarily going to be where, well, okay, so because you raise this, we're going to have punitive actions against somebody, but we're going to at least see what can we do to help you feel heard, help you feel comfortable that this environment is meant for this purpose, to increase your learning through this method. It's not, meant to be hostile, offensive, intimidating. And at least having that conversation, I think, is a step towards helping people feel better about the community that they're part of. If people want to continue this conversation, please do reach out to me. You can find my contact information on the Ombudsperson website. You can find it on the Academic Bullying website. But ultimately, we want to keep this conversation going. We would like to see if you have or would like to take one of those steps of creating an action plan by at least creating a statement or paragraph about what efforts that your program or environment your program is trying to create in terms of disrupting academic bullying. You can send those to me, and then I'll work with Kathy and the dean to look at those incentivizing type ways that we can put them on the web, create a awareness that here are communities, programs, departments that are really investing in this initiative. But if you have other ideas, definitely reach out to me as well. We'll keep this conversation going. So thank you.